Time to check in again with Quincy City Council President Noel DeBona to get an update on the December 5th City Council meeting. Hi, Noel.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
We're doing great. So we've got through all the Thanksgiving festivities, and now we're looking forward to Christmas.
It's great. It's a great time of the year, and it looks good. Obviously, we never want snow because it costs the city money to go out and actually sand and salt the streets. So we're doing okay thus far.
Yeah. Let's hope we don't pay the price later on. Exactly. Well, the big item, I guess, this week is, of course, property taxes, right?
It's always the big item, yes. So, yeah, last night we had a little discussion, and what the main issues came out to be is the assessed values are now up to $602,300. That's the average single-family homeowner, throughout the city of Quincy. It's around in taxes around $6,705, so about $6,700 on the average, and it's a $59,000 increase in assessed value. So it's really gone up quite a bit, even though things are starting to level off and settle down with the housing market. Quincy is a very desirable city to live in, and folks are still paying over the last year, paying over the price of what the market is actually doing with the realtors. You're still keeping it very high. It keeps us with all the stabilization fund transfers and the money that was moved from the healthcare, as well as the pension bond stabilization funds. It went up to around $20 million of moving of funds. And with that dictation of moving of funds from stabilization, the healthcare, and the pension, you're saving, for every $1 million that you move, you're saving the taxpayers $25. So essentially around $20 million is $500 of savings. Without moving any of the funding over, any of the moving from stabilization, you were looking at a $700 increase in the city of Quincy. Now, we as the city council, we don't control a lot of those appropriations to move. We can either approve it or we can actually decrease it and cut it. We can't add to any of these figures. We can't add, obviously, to the budget. We can only cut or approve. So essentially, if anybody was up there last night and wanted to cut any of these funds, move from these stabilizations and the health cares and the pension, you essentially would be adding taxes to folks out there. So all of the councils agreed to move the funding over. And instead of being $700 of taxes this particular year, you're looking at an average of $195. So the average is $195 per average single family of $602,300. And if your values are a little bit lower, let's say they're in the 500s, you possibly could be actually paying less this year. And in some areas, if you're a little bit more than $602,000, you could possibly be paying more. Some of the areas of the city you live in, the values of the houses are a little bit higher. It also is based on what real estate transactions have happened in your particular area based on square footage. If it's in your neighborhood and you see a person next door from you and they sell a house and it's very, very high in value, you're like, wow, this went like $50,000, $60,000 over. It looks like you're going to have an assessed value of your house being a little higher. And if you're in some areas and it's only $10,000, $20,000 more than what it is, you'll probably have a little less. And I only say $10,000, $20,000 because you were seeing some transactions in the last year going $50,000 and $60,000 and $70,000 over the asking price. So that's the market. And that's what is dictating in Quincy. We're very desirable because we live next to the T. No matter where you are in the city of Quincy, you're looking at 4 T stations. You're looking at bus lines everywhere, and the convenience of being on the shore, on the coastlines, as well as being next to Boston. And a lot of folks want to live in Quincy because it's easy to get into Boston. As I'm doing my little commute here to Dedham this morning, so for my full-time job as well. So it's I can get here in 20-25 minutes if it's no traffic.
Yeah. So do you think it's safe, Noel, to use that money from the stabilization and the pension accounts?
If it can be replenished. If these funds can be replenished over the next year or two, then you're in good shape. If these funds cannot be replenished from other sources of revenue, then we can have problems. And that's a question that we're going to have to see for the future. Is it the right move in this particular year? I think so. And I'll tell you why. Just going through the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of folks were struggling, and to put a $700 price tag out there for all the folks in the city this particular year might be tough. There's a huge inflationary rate. Things are going to start leveling off with housing market. We might be going into a different sphere of things. Now, I don't want to get into ARPA funds, and I don't want to get into American Rescue funds and all these other things, but you can actually move some of that funding from those funds into stabilization if you need to in the future. Something to consider the administration. They'll have to make that call and bring it to the city council. They've done it out in Norfolk County. I believe they've moved $1 million into stabilization funds from the ARPA accounts. You can do that. That might be something you can do in the near future. I'm pretty sure municipalities, if it's in the county, they can possibly do it in a city of Quincy with the same municipality. So if other funds come forward from those type of accounts, you can move them over into those accounts. We're lucky we were able to have the healthcare. We had $3 million in that. The stabilization was roughly $6 million and $4 million, so a little bit $10.2 million of stabilization. And the pension bond, pension stabilization, we moved over $5.2 million. And then there was another $1.1 million. So roughly around a little under $20 million was moved over for these funds that were put into to lower the tax rate and to lower the tax levy. I only can compare these other towns around us like Braintree's and Weymouth. I believe Weymouth's a little lower at 134, but you got to remember they did a 2.5 override, and they're paying $237 per year just based on the tax, the Proposition 2.5 override that was done over there. Braintree did it last year as well. So those two areas, even though their tax rate and their taxes might go up roughly right around ours, it's still more because they actually have to consider the 2.5 override that they approved some years ago. So that's something they pay on top of their taxes. Here in Quincy, Mass, we don't have that situation. We're always below the tax levy. We don't have to go in front and try to have a voting Proposition 2.5 override with a vote to do it. So we haven't had that situation here in the city of Quincy. So we're roughly in the middle. I know the mayor says and the administration says we're roughly in the middle of where it needs to be. So our growth, we need to continue to get rid of these blight buildings, these blight areas of the city, and revitalize those particular areas. That's our new growth, and we have to actually use that for the tax base.
Okay, very good. It looks like that took up the bulk of the meeting. Is that right?
It was the majority of the meeting. Eric Mason from Municipal Finance and Colleen Healy, the chairperson of the Board of Assessors, were in there, and they really described and gave a great presentation to let us know. I hope if we move stabilization funds and we have it, I hope in the near future we do it again. I asked about it last year, and also you can always use free cash. Now, it wasn't certified this year for free cash, but I've seen situations. You remember the 2015, 110 inches of snow where we had to get that snow out of here, where we actually did a 3-year bond where we actually had to pay that down every year. And I remember coming to the council, and I believe it was 2016 or 17, where we bought it down and we brought it down $100. So those type of things happen. And you can do that and use free cash for it. This particular year we did it. We moved it over some stabilization. So these are other little tools in the toolbox. And it's saving people this year. And we got to think about this particular year. We also have to think about the future. That's why we built up these funds and these stabilizations, and that's why we had it.
Okay, yeah, and no one will argue that inflation this year and the cost of energy is going to be prohibitive for a lot of folks.
So yeah, I mean, those are the main items on the agenda. We moved a little bit from December 14th, the Ward 4 election. We moved the date up to December 14th to turn in your nomination papers. I believe 4 people have pulled papers and 2 people have returned papers. So One more person returns papers, you're going to have a preliminary election day after Martin Luther King Jr., which is the 17th, I believe.
That's right. 17th. Yep.
And 17th. And then the final special election will be February 7th.
Right.
If one more person returns their papers and stays in the race, there'll be 3 people that have to knock it down to 2.
Excellent. All right. Good to talk to you, Noel. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. Have a great day. And by the way, Quincy North Quincy game was one of the best Quincy High School, Quincy North Quincy football games ever. 40-35, where Quincy was a high scoring game, most post-points scored ever in the history. And then Andrew Novak had 5 touchdown passes and he ran in one. He had 390 yards passing. So thank you for QATV for all your coverage on that game. The live stream was beautiful. And I also got to give a note out to the city of Quincy for the beautiful, beautiful lights that are out there. I know that we had the parade, the Christmas parade. You guys obviously did the recordings and did a great job. Thank you so much. And then we had the beautiful tree lightings across the city. Not only was the tree lighting over at the Hancock Adams Common, the lightings and as well, but all throughout the cities. The General's Bridge had a tree lighting. Other areas of the city had various tree lightings, and it looks beautiful in the city to say this is our city, and it brings the community together with those type of events. So kudos to everyone involved in that.
Yes, as I recall, you predicted 28-7 for Quincy over North.
I did, and I'll give Coach Craig a lot of credit. He came out. They returned a kickoff before the half. It was 21-0, and they returned a kickoff. Nate Caldwell took it to the house 21-7. It gave them momentum. They came out in the second half, and they just started scoring points. And that's what football is all about, is momentum. So huge shout out to Coach Craig. He had a great game. They scored 35 points. It was a 40-35 shootout, but I was right. They win. The Quincy did win. They had a little bit better team in the end. So, but that was an unbelievable game. Kudos to North Quincy for really, really giving a great game and being right in it to the very end.
Yeah, it was a great effort. And as I recall, I believe it's one of the longest Thanksgiving Day games ever in the city, but it was well worth it.
It was, Joe. But thank you for all your coverage at QATV. It really helps out the public in allowing these kids to get some coverage out there.
Oh, thank you. No, we appreciate that. And we'll catch up with you after the next council meeting.
We sure will.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Have a good day.